Minutes past 8. Delighted to welcome Paddy Agnew back to the show. Paddy, how are you getting on?
I'm fine. Good morning to everybody.
Yeah, good morning. Tonight, Italy versus North Macedonia in a semi-final to qualify for the World Cup. It should be straightforward for Italy on paper, but I assume amongst some of the Italian fans there is a little bit of PTSD from 2017 and what happened with Sweden lingering around.
Yeah, or indeed what happened with Northern Ireland in 1948, but we won't touch on that. No, I would agree with what you've just said. Nothing will be taken for granted with North Macedonia, but basically Italian fans and Italians expect them to get through this one, and we're talking about the big game, which will be next Tuesday against either Turkey or Portugal. Obviously, everybody's watching this game closely. Everybody, I mean, in the football world, because what we're talking about here, after all, is Italy. This is the country with the second best record in the World Cup. 4 times World Cup winners, twice finalists, the reigning European champions. Can you really imagine a World Cup without this side?
It would be extraordinary, and there is a realistic possibility that it might happen. For the first time ever, Italy might fail to qualify for back-to-back World Cups. Is it as bad as that sort of scenario suggests, or is this a little bit of an aberration?
No, I think it's a bit of an aberration because you saw yourselves how good a team Italy is at the European Championships last summer. They were cruising through their World Cup qualifying group, won their opening games, they drew against Bulgaria, and they had this weird thing. There's really only one side they were battling for winning the group. That was Switzerland, who are a good team, as we know. And in both the games against Switzerland, both the qualifiers, Jorginho missed a penalty, which would have won the game. And both 2 games which I would argue Italy deserved to win. And that put them into, that ruined all their plans. They went to Belfast and they played their one really poor game in that qualifying group, drew 0-0, and now they find themselves in the lottery of the playoff. And, whatever about the game against North Macedonia tonight in Palermo, obviously, you can take nothing for granted against either Portugal or Turkey.
For sure.
If you get through tonight.
Especially considering it's on the road as well next week, and potentially having to go to Porto as well to play Portugal there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Has there been any sense of a hangover at all post-Euros?
A hangover in what sense? Sore head?
A sore head, definitely,
wine,
which would contribute to, I'd like to think what would happen if Ireland never won a European Championships. Probably wouldn't qualify for a tournament for 40 years. But it's understandable if that's the case, or is it, maybe it's just a sense of you disagree with that.
I don't. I mean, they drew with Bulgaria early in the autumn. That was a bit of a hangover to some extent, but by and large, the group was proceeding perfectly, all on cue. Had Jorginho put away his 2 penalties, Italy would be in the World Cup at this point. It's as simple as that. It's one of those. It's not often the same guy misses 2 match-winning penalties in successive qualifiers against the same team.
What was the Euros like over there, Paddy, actually?
Well, Italians were, as you all know, they follow the Italian national team is followed passionately and madly, but they were, lukewarmish about it coming in. But all these tournaments, they get stamped by the way the thing begins, and it began very well, a 3-0 win against Turkey, and from that moment on, the bandwagon was rolling, majority of Italians were very, very hopeful from that moment on, and the majority of the experts felt that Italy were by far the best team in the tournament.
And in terms of, we spoke about earlier on the show, in terms of a World Cup in Qatar, has there been much chat about that over there?
Yeah, this is the chat that you've had in all over the world. Is this a good idea to be playing it in November? Is it a good idea to be playing it in extraordinary heat conditions? And a lot of people are critical of that. But football professionals say, okay, well that's what FIFA's come up with, and we'll get on with it. It's still the World Cup.
And just in terms of your years there, we spoke about Festia Basele and James Babankwa both going to Udinese on the show earlier this week. Have you felt that decline in terms of the Italian game from your early days over there? And, you know, people of my generation would have been watching Italian football on Monday nights, I guess, in the 90s and thinking it was the best thing ever. And in those days, Milan were dominant and they were dominant in Europe. And nowadays, the Premier League is obviously totally taken it over. And I remember like going to games in Italy. It got a lot harder to get into games because of crowd trouble and so on and so forth. Have you felt that sort of decline yourself, or am I exaggerating?
No, you're not exaggerating. You're absolutely bang on. I mean, Italy missed a golden moment in the sense that they had that great period when I actually arrived here in the mid '80s, when this was the Hollywood of football. I mean, this was where all the good players wanted to be it Maradona, Platini, etc. And that is not the situation now. Maradona and Platini will be going to the Premiership now if they were footballers. If they were still playing, but Italian football. There are many reasons why it failed to seize the initiative of the situation they found themselves in. Above all, they took it for granted. Well, we're very good at the moment and we don't have to do anything. And one of the things they failed to do, one of the many things they failed to do, was to invest heavily in infrastructure. And the most obvious piece of football infrastructure being your own stadium. Because remember, the vast majority of Italian clubs have city council-owned stadia, so they lose out on a lot of revenue. That was one weakness, and then they weren't good at selling, as good as the Premiership has been about selling their game.
It's interesting. I do wonder, the Premier League as an English-speaking kind of country or something, did it help? Like, why? I know Spain is probably having a bit of a lull at the moment, but I do reflect on it a bit with sadness, considering how, you know, the likes of Maldini, Baresi, all these players were total icons to someone even in the west of Ireland when I was a kid. And now, you know, I think a lot of football fans would struggle to name players that play in Italy for a lot of the clubs.
Yeah, you're right. I agree entirely. I just say one thing to you about that, though. It's a very interesting fact. At the moment, there's something like 9 different Serie A clubs in the hands of American, US investors, buyers, consortium. 9 of them. I think it's 9. It changes all the time. The most recent one was a guy called Paddy Agnew, who bought himself a 43% share in Atalanta just about a month ago. But and obviously, these guys, I mean, the Elliott Foundation at AC Milan, the Friedkin people at AS Roma, so on, they obviously feel that this is there's some potential here. And I think what they're saying is they're looking at the Italian football. They say this is one of the great footballing countries in the world. This is a huge tradition. 4 times World Cup winners. This surely we can market this. Surely we can make money out of that. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they get on. So far, those who've tried to invest in Italian football in recent times have not made money.
Yeah, just finding that, you know, what can Italian clubs sort of offer to players in terms of a player that has options across Europe? Because, like, obviously there's so much money in the Premier League. Like, what's the funding model in the Serie A in terms of TV money and that relative to the Premier League? Because I presume that's where it's struggling a bit as well.
No, you're right. I mean, I saw a comparison the other day between the pay levels in the Premier League and Serie A, and you know, you're talking about a factor of. It's not that the best players in the Premier League get twice as much; they get about 3 times as much. The salaries are much bigger, and the television revenues are much bigger. There's no question of that. Italy is losing out all the time in that.
What about the product that we're currently seeing in Serie A, though? Is there a sense, though, that in the heyday of what Johnny's talking about there on Monday nights, there was, yes, there were moments of magic in it, but the style of football is more catenaccio, was more defensive based, whereas now it does feel that even just the goal tallies have gone up a bit. There are some high scoring affairs more at the moment in Serie A. I accept that that's not necessarily completely proportional to good quality football, but is that I guess an inkling of hope?
Yes, it is. I think Mancini's Italy represents an inkling of hope, because it's a reminder that the game still is so strongly eradicated into Italian society. You know, anybody who's ever been to Italy knows that there's really only one sport that commands all the attention. You buy Gazetta dello Sport, there's 32 pages, and 28 of them are about football. That tension means that you're always going to produce very good footballers. And when you had an all-Italian team in the European Championships last summer, you saw a lot of good football. So I don't think Italy's is at end point here. They haven't got. I think on the contrary, there's plenty of. I understand why the Americans are investing. I think there's plenty of room, plenty of progress to be made here.
And I guess what you've got as well is, if you're looking at the Premier League versus Serie A, take their national teams in microcosm. You had them going head to head in a major tournament final last year, and Italy get the job done. Obviously, that's reading way too much into just one fixture, but there is definitely a sense that Italy have managed to survive any lessening in importance of their national league much better than other nations have.
Well, yeah, but if they don't qualify for the World Cup this summer,
bit of a setback.
Yeah, we might have to rephrase that one.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, there are 3 youngish Irish players either in Italy or going to Italy, and I mentioned 2 of them. The other one is Kevin Zeffi in Milan.
4 is my count.
Who am I missing?
You got Zeffi and Heffernan as well.
Heffernan as well. Sorry. So both of whom were playing for Ireland underage yesterday, actually. What would the 2 lads? I guess what would the 2 lads expect in Udine? Is it where Udinese is?
Udinese. Well, Udinese is a great site for discovering talent. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all 3 guys. A lot of it hasn't exactly generated a huge amount of interest amongst the fans, but people have pointed out, when Heffernan signed for AC Milan, he's the first person to join since Paddy Sloan back in, I think it was 48. He was the first Irishman ever to play in Serie A. Right. A guy who ended up in Australia. I think he died in Melbourne in 1990. But a lot of attention to that. I noticed that Zeffi, he's been here a bit longer. He got mentioned a bit in dispatches the other day. December. Scored a hat-trick against Verona in an under-17 game. So, I mean, good news. Certain amount of good news. As for Udinese, Udinese is a good club to have gone to. No question of that. And they look after a lot of players. Somebody like Alexis Sanchez was picked up by them years ago. And he made his burst through to the top level at Udinese.
Paddy Sloan played for Udinese as well, of course, between 49
Paddy Sloan
and 50.
Did,
You always say, of course, when you just found something out for the first time.
Of course, according to the Wikipedia that's in front of me. And just off the top of my head. Off the top of my head, Brescia as well, I think, for a period of time, just throwing that out there, maybe Bath City at the end of his career.
It's possible, though, that there will be, like, an Irish revival, Paddy, in interest, because, like, I do have such fond memories with, like, when Miles Dungan presented that show, which I presume was just basically a copy and paste job of what Channel 4 was showing. We didn't have Channel 4 at the time. We had literally 2 channels. And Italian football was so exotic. But maybe this will enliven Irish interest in Italian football if one of these players starts playing regularly.
I hope so. Means I'll be travelling up to Milan a bit to see these boys play.
Happy days.
Scout, you'd be a scout for Stephen Kenny.
Yeah.
Is there a sense that are you starting to see, even if we kind of like remove the Irish spectacles here for a bit, are you starting to see scouting broaden its horizons a little bit within some of these Italian clubs as well, or is this just kind of a bit of a coincidence over the last little while?
Well, I think the best Italian clubs like Juventus, Inter, AC Milan, even Udinese. These clubs, and particularly Udinese, actually, these clubs have had a very developed scouting network for a long time now, and they pick up a lot of very good players. Most of them do a season. A lot of them do a season in Italy, establish themselves, and then move on to the Premier League.
Yeah, like I suppose for you, do you think it's as much of an obstacle in that you went over to an alien country in the 80s? I've been to Italy several times, but I guess for, it's hardly a big jump to imagine living there. But for these Irish players, I mean, there have been so few success stories over there. You're thinking of Liam Brady, basically, in terms of the Irish context. Robbie Keane went over, but it's been really, really sparse.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Bang on. It's not an easy country to live in, Italy, in some ways. I know you look at the sun, the wine, the whole atmosphere. It must be great, but it's not easy to move into that country. And Liam Brady's the exception that proves the rule. Liam worked really hard as Italian. He adapted himself, and he was a wonderful footballer. And he became, an Italian icon, although he wouldn't say so himself, but he was. But yeah, a young player coming to Italy, he'll find it very, very hard.
Just to finish up then, Paddy, on tonight, I think they're making an exception, are they, for COVID rules at the moment over there. I think our sporting events limited to 75% capacity, but they're allowing Palermo to be packed out tonight.
Yeah, it's not a huge stadium, the Favorita in Palermo, but it's going to be 100%. It's about, I think you have about 35,000 people there. But the reason they picked that is that it's a English-style stadium. It's a new stadium that was built. Well, new stadium was built for the 1990 World Cup. That's hardly new, but it's one where you don't have a running track around it, and you have should have very good atmosphere. And an intimidating atmosphere for the Macedonians.
Do you expect them to qualify, Paddy?
I expect them to qualify, in the same way that Mancini does, because although Mancini hasn't played down what is a really awkward situation to find themselves in, given the precedent of Sweden in 2017, but he just says, Mancini says, look, this side is a good team. They know how to play good football. We showed that without any doubt in European Championships last summer, and we can do it again. It's just, and also he was very worried, as any coach is before a game like this, about missing key players. In fact, it's a pretty strong-looking team. You have, Chiellini looks like he's going to be back. Bonucci isn't ready yet. Chiellini's back. You have, the important figures in midfield, Barella, Verratti, Jorginho, and you have Immobile leading the attack with Insigne on one side and Berardi on the other. So it's a strong team. These are all players who featured in the European Championships, and these are all players who've been through this sort of pressure before.
Just a fine question for me, sorry, on the Gazetta dello Sport is still going strong there, is it? It's
pink pages.
Yeah, like we all remember James Richardson. It's definitely a personal dream that there be a sports paper in Ireland. I think we had one briefly, but Gazetta's still going anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great question too, because if you look at Gazette today, the front page is dominated by one huge headline which says "Facciamo l'Italia." In other words, let's go out and play like Italy,
It's just like even like to have a sports paper today for a game like that, like every day. How cool is that? Like,
yeah. I guess the good news, Paddy, is that if Italy fail to qualify, they're pretty good at rugby union. All of a sudden, that's the mood of the nation swinging, I guess.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the rugby match was great with a lot of enthusiasm, as you can imagine. And there've been a lot of I have a lot of pals who follow Italian rugby, played for one or two of them played for Italy, and they were over the moon, frankly.
Did it feature in the first 10 pages of Gazetta on Monday? Sunday? Oh, I'm not sure.
Well, it got a lot of space, yeah.
Right.
It was slightly overshadowed by Ferrari going to Formula One Grand Prix of the season.
What a weekend for Italian sport.
It was a good weekend for Italian sport, and let's hope that the Mancini can prolong it.
Paddy Agnew, great stuff as ever. Thanks many for taking the call.
Thank you.
Cheers. 8:25. You're with us here on OTB AM. Just going to give you another opportunity to win our competition. Get ready to cheer Ireland on in the TikTok Women's Six Nations. To launch this year's campaign, we're giving away 2 tickets to see Ireland take on Wales on this Saturday at 5:15 in the RDS Arena. The lucky winners will also be entered into a draw to be in with a chance to win an overnight stay in the stunning Intercontinental Hotel on the night of the game. To enter, tell us what you think the score will be this weekend between Ireland and Wales. Wherever you're watching this morning's OTB AM, just comment on Twitter, Facebook or YouTube. International Women's Rugby is at the RDS and there's nothing like it. Be part of the action. Get your tickets at ticketmaster.ie. Did you keep your Gazetta dello Sport safe as a souvenir? The editions that you managed to pick up?
No, I didn't actually. But it's lovely to go over to Italy and get an espresso or whatever, and just start feeling like you're an Italian. And become James Ritson for a couple of minutes and buy the paper, even though clearly you can't read it. I mean, you don't understand Italian, but like, would an Irish Sunday sports paper work over here? It's a question that I've often thought about. Like, it is the dream, an Irish sports where you could have like massive, long investigative breaking stories. But like, would people buy it? Would they just start taking photos of it and sending it online and putting it on Twitter? And do people want to pay for newspapers anymore? Like, it's really sad that people just don't buy newspapers anymore. I actually think it's alarming that people just get all their news on their phone for free. Would an Irish sports paper like the Title work nowadays? Like a Gazetta dello Sport? Wouldn't that be amazing to have like something like the lads in the Times broke about the FAI, something like that everyone had to buy, but they only bought the paper because there was no other way of getting it. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but like Gazetta's every day they have a sports paper. Amazing to think. I don't know how they've managed in the internet age, but they're obviously still going anyway.
Yeah, they do tend to I guess is it helped by the fact that they have a sort of, a daily heartbeat of content, especially in the off season with a massive global league. Granted, it's not as what it once was, but like I remember when I was in Milan, obviously I saw it there. I had to buy it, and it was just like the constant stream of Donnarumma stories every single day when he was first I think it was like 2017 when he was first unhappy at Milan, and everybody in the city hated him, and everybody was like, this guy, he's going to betray us this summer. I guess he eventually did end up leaving, and every single day, front page, more Donnarumma news, and that constant drumbeat of stuff. Not sure does that exist here as such. Maybe it does. Maybe it becomes a sort of a British perspective, an Irish perspective on what's happening in the British leagues potentially. It's just the dead zone. Your Tuesday morning, your Wednesday morning. What's your front page?
Well, that's it. Like OTB AM, it was a challenge that you have to have sport every day and you have to have it every morning. I think OTB AM is managing quite comfortably. Could you have, like they have L'Equipe in France? Could you have like a daily sports paper in Ireland? Absolutely wouldn't work. But could you have?
Sorry, you're saying weekly, of course.
Could you have a Sunday paper of like big columnists, people who there'd be hardly anyone on staff, so like, because you just can't afford that, so be a team of freelancers, like yourself for example, who write an article or write or do an investigative piece. There wouldn't be many match reports because they're all online, so it'd be more like, say, the Ireland-Scotland game on Saturday. It'd be like some heavyweight analysis of that, but your main front page would be like an investigative, a breaking news story that changes the sporting landscape.
I put this to you.
Would it work? I don't know.
I'd
You'd
love
buy
to
it.
see it. I would 100% buy it. The thing is, though,
we work in the game.
The thing is, though, you would absolutely. I think the quality of Sunday papers in this country is excellent.
It's not, though.
But I sometimes pick up. I think sometimes it is. Well,
what do you have? Like, so the Sunday Independent, right? And the Sunday
section is excellent.
The Sunday Independent sports section and the Sunday Times. That's basically it, really. And I'm not being disparaging towards the tabloids, but you've basically two options. And the Sunday Times, neither of them, the Sunday Independent or the Sunday Times, neither of them really covers the League of Ireland at all. So from my perspective, it's not great at all on a Sunday, right, if that's my main interest. So my two main interests will be League of Ireland and horse racing, but like they're a little bit niche. So my paper would probably collapse within a month. Like, it'd basically be screwed pay.
But I think there's eating and drinking in the sports sections of those two papers alone on a Sunday.
It's two papers. Like the Business Post, I buy the Business Post. The Business Post doesn't have any sport.
No,
and that's not.
You might actually buy it for one sports article, which actually maybe proves that there maybe is a market. It's like. You can't consume your Sunday sport on your phone, surely. Like, you need to have a coffee and this would be another deal I'd have, be coffee and a croissant to be a special offer on the front page, because coffee croissant, the Sunday newspaper, and particularly if it's a Sunday sports paper, what better way to start the week, preferably not hungover. I want this to happen. I absolutely want this to happen, just for clarity's sake.
We need the Comer brothers or someone like that to throw infinite money at it, because it's not easy for newspapers at the moment. But I like something tangible on. I like the smell of it. I like reading something. I can't read long articles on my phone. I just find I'm constantly browsing. It tires me out. Or on my laptop. And I'd love the idea of a Sunday sports paper. So if you are out there and you want to back on and my idea, we're open to backing. We're obviously happy in our current job as well. But
I should say, I'm not sure. I hope I'm not breaking the fourth wall here. But Nathan's just been like, I love Owen questioning how can anybody cover sport every single day.
Yeah,
It's
but what else is
It's easily done, and
else
it's
is
a
going on in
pleasure.
your
And I
world?
mean, it's the most important thing. It's easily done. I was just being devil's advocate. I promise.
Well, in
Right.
the old days, lastly on this, like you'd have to employ people on a salary, whereas now it's just journalism isn't like that. Now people are just pick up extra work in addition to what they do, like your new column in the Sunday newspaper.
Absolutely.